Eric Patrick Clapton was born on the 30th of March 1945 in his grandparents' home at 1 the Green Ripley, Surrey, England. He was the son of 16-year-old Patricia Molly Clapton and Edward Walter Fryer, a 24-year-old Canadian soldier stationed in England during World War II. Before Eric was born, Fryer returned to his wife in Canada. It was extraordinarily difficult for an unmarried 16-year-old to raise a child on her own in the mid-1940s. Pat's parents, Rose and Jack Clapp, stepped in as surrogate parents and raised Eric as their own. He grew up believing his mother was his sister. His grandparents never legally adopted him, but remained his legal guardians until 1963. Eric's last name comes from Rose's first husband and Pat's father, Reginald Cecil Clapton. Eric's mother eventually married and moved to Canada and Germany as her husband, Frank MacDonald, and continued his military career. They had 2 girls and a boy. Eric's half-brother Brian was killed in a road accident in 1974 at the age of 26, and his half-sisters are Cheryl and Heather. Eric was raised in a musical household. His grandmother played piano, and his uncle and mother both enjoyed listening to the sounds of the big bands. Pat later told Eric's official biographer, Ray Coleman, that his father was a gifted musician, playing piano in several dance bands in the Surrey area. Quiet and polite, he was characterized as an above-average student with an aptitude for art. But from his earliest years in school, he realized something was not quite right when he wrote his name as Eric Clapton and his parents' names as Mr. and Mrs. Clapp. At the age of 9, he learned the truth about his parentage when Pat returned to England with his 6-year-old half-brother for a visit. This singular event affected him deeply and was a defining moment in his life. He became moody and distant and stopped applying himself at school. Emotionally scarred by this event, Eric failed the all-important 11+ exams. He was sent to St. Bede's Secondary Modern School, and 2 years later entered the art branch of Holyfield Road School. By 1958, rock and roll had exploded onto the world. For his 13th birthday, Eric asked for a guitar. Finding the inexpensive German-made Hoyer difficult to play, it had steel strings, he put it aside. In 1961, when he was 16, Eric began studying at the Kingston College of Art on a 1-year probation. He was expelled at the end of that time for lack of progress, as he had not submitted enough work. Sometime in 1962, he asked for his grandparents' help in purchasing a 100-pound electric double cutaway, K.A. Gibson S335 clone, after hearing the electric blues of Freddie King, B.B. King, Muddy Waters, Buddy Guy, and others. Eric spent his early days in music busking around Richmond and Kingston. He also began spending time in London and the West End. In early 1963, 17-year-old Eric joined his first band, the Roosters. Following the band's demise in August 1963, he spent 1 month in the pop-oriented Casey Jones and the Engineers, before turning to music as a full-time career. He supported himself as a laborer at building sites, working alongside his grandfather, a master bricklayer and plasterer. In October 1963, Keith Relf and Paul Samwell Smith recruited him to become a member of the Yardbirds because Clapton was the most talked-about guitar player on the R&B pub circuit. During his 18-month tenure with the Yardbirds, he earned his nickname Slow Hand and recorded his first albums, 5 Live Yardbirds and Sonny Boy Williamson and the Yardbirds. The band also recorded the single Good Morning Little Schoolgirl. Eric had not abandoned his serious research into the American blues. When the Yardbirds began moving towards a more commercial sound with For Your Love, he quit. His path in music was the blues. In April 1965, John Mayall invited Eric to join his band John Mayall's Bluesbreakers. With this group, Clapton established his reputation as a guitarist and earned his second nickname, God. It came from an admirer's graffiti on the wall of London's Islington tube station that boldly proclaimed Clapton is God. Eric's time with the band was turbulent, and he left for a while to tour Greece with friends. Upon his return from Greece, Eric rejoined the Bluesbreakers. It was during this time that the now classic Bluesbreakers with Eric Clapton was recorded. While with the Bluesbreakers, Eric also recorded a one-off 4-track session with a band dubbed the Powerhouse. This studio band included John Paul Jones, Steve Winwood, and Jack Bruce. After leaving the Bluesbreakers for a second and final time in July 1966, Eric teamed up with Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker to form Cream. Extensive touring in the US, and 3 solid albums, Fresh Cream, Disraeli Gears, and Wheels of Fire, brought the band worldwide acclaim. While a member of Cream, he cemented his reputation as rock's premier guitarist and was elevated to superstar status. Although Cream was together for only 2 years, they are considered one of the most influential rock groups of the modern era. Clapton was unique because he did not simply replicate the blues riffs he heard on records. He incorporated the emotion of the original performances into his own style of playing, thus expanding the vocabulary of blues guitar. Cream crumbled beneath the weight of the members' egos and constant arguing. They disbanded after 2 final performances at London's Royal Albert Hall on the 26th of November 1968. Following Cream's breakup, Clapton founded Blind Faith Rock's first supergroup with Steve Winwood, Ginger Baker, and Rick Greck. Disbanding after 1 album and a disastrous American tour, Eric tried to hide from his growing fame by touring as a sideman with Delaney and Bonnie and Friends. The Dominoes would go on to record the seminal rock album Layla and other assorted love songs. A concept album, its theme revolved around Clapton's unrequited love for George Harrison's wife Patty. The band would drift apart following an American tour and a failed attempt at recording a second album. Hit hard by the breakup of the Dominoes, the commercial failure of the Layla album, and his unrequited love, Eric sunk into 3 years of heroin addiction. Although he rarely emerged from his Surrey estate, he filled box upon box with tapes of songs. He kicked his drug addiction and relaunched his career in January 1973 with 2 concerts at London's Rainbow Theatre, organized by his friend Pete Townsend. The concerts represented a turning point in his career. In 1974, he reappeared with a new style and sound with 461 Ocean Boulevard. Eric had become an assured vocalist and composer in addition to a guitar hero. With each album after 461 Ocean Boulevard, Eric reinvented himself musically. Throughout the 1970 and early 1980, albums and tours would follow year in and year out. In 1985, Clapton found a new audience following his performance at the worldwide charity concert Live Aid. Annual stands at the Royal Albert Hall and successful albums like August, Journeyman, and the Crossroads box set kept him well in the public mind. With more than 50 years of touring under his belt, Eric has played in excess of 3,000 concerts. He has given concerts in 58 countries across 6 continents and played to over 2 billion people. Since 1964, he has appeared at London's Royal Albert Hall more than 200 times. Between 1987 and 1996, he held annual residencies at the venue, which reached their peak in 1991 with 24 nights that featured 5 different band formats, including a full orchestra. Across the Atlantic, he has graced the stage of Madison Square Garden more than 50 times since 1968. Over the course of his career, Eric has received numerous awards and accolades. His first was Best International Musician in Melody Maker's Pop Poll. He has won 18 Grammy Awards and a BAFTA for his work on the Edge of Darkness soundtrack. He is the only triple inductee in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Yardbirds Cream and as a solo artist. Eric has also been inducted to the Songwriters Hall of Fame. In September 2018, Eric was honored with one of the first stars on the Royal Albert Hall's Walk of Fame. In 1994, Queen Elizabeth II made Eric an Officer of the Order of the British Empire in her New Year's honours list for contribution to British life. In 2004, she honoured him further when he was made a Commander of the Order of the British Empire, or CBE.